press secretary of the White House abruptly ended U.S. President Joe Biden's rambling during a press conference in Vietnam. Andrea Santos files this report.
Joe Biden concluded his first Asian trip as president with a press conference in Hanoi, Vietnam. However, it was marred by awkward jokes and rambling about the third world. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre abruptly ended Biden's press conference, cutting him off mid-sentence as he talked about the third world and his conversation with Chinese Premier Li Qiang. The U.S. president took numerous scheduled questions from the media, telling reporters that he was going to bed, although he kept answering additional questions, including his talk with Premier Lee at the G20 summit in India on Saturday. According to Biden, the talks with Lee were not confrontational at all.
We talked about at the conference overall. We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the third world, the southern hemisphere had access to change. It had access. It wasn't confrontational at all.
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
After attempting to answer another question, Biden turned around and walked off stage. This comes as many Democrats' concerns regarding the 80-year-old U.S. president's health. According to an NBC News survey in June of this year, 43% of Democrats said that they had moderate to major concerns about Biden's health. Meanwhile, reports say the U.S. president's press conferences are typically tightly managed by his aides. Biden's Vietnam trip came as the United States attempts to bolster ties with Asian countries in a bid to counter China's growing influence in the region. Reporting, this is Andrea Santos, SMNI News.
Japan and South Korea's top leaders agreed to deepen their bilateral ties. King Song reports.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol both agreed to keep working together to deepen the bilateral relations between Seoul and Tokyo. The two leaders made the statement on the sidelines of the recently concluded G20 summit in New Delhi, India. Kishida also reportedly told Yoon that Japan has hopes for South Korea to chair the trilateral talks with China this year. Meanwhile, officials of Japan, South Korea, and China will hold talks in Seoul on September 25th. South Korea has served as chairman of the trilateral framework since it was formed in 2020. But now officials said they will look into the possibility of holding a three-way summit between South Korea, Japan, and China, as the ties between Tokyo and Beijing have soured since the release of treated radioactive wastewater into the Pacific Ocean from the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Meanwhile, relations between Japan and South Korea have been improving. The Japanese government, the two countries' leaders, have so far held 6 bilateral talks in as many months. Solisobugo Kim Sang-imnida, SMNI News, South Korea.
A Chinese Navy hospital deployed for a humanitarian mission in the South Pacific ended its trip in the region. Jillian Libuit has the details.
East Timor became the last country in Southeast Asia visited by the Chinese Navy hospital ship Peace Ark. Dubbed Harmonious Mission 2023, Peace Ark left its home port from eastern China in early July with 126 medical personnel on board. The floating hospital toured 5 countries in the region, which include Tonga, Kiribati, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, and Timor-Leste. The military-run vessel provided free medical services to thousands of Chinese and residents from the 5 countries in the South Pacific region. The ship has sailed to more than 40 countries since it was deployed in 2008. Meanwhile, the U.S. hospital ship Mercy is due to visit the Solomon Islands during the Pacific Games later this year. Navy hospitals from China and the United States visited the Solomon Islands in recent years amid growing competition for influence in the region. Reporting from New South Wales, this has been Jillian Libuit, SMNI News, Australia.
Chinese travelers planning to visit Thailand may no longer need to apply for a visa in the future after local lawmakers campaign to abolish the travel document. Chatmongkon Pisamay Goson reports.
Newly appointed cabinet members in Thailand will hold their first meeting after their oath taking this week. The proposed visa-free policy for Chinese visitors will be high on the agenda in the upcoming meeting. Local officials consider the proposed visa-free policy for Chinese visitors an effective short-term tourism stimulus and testifies to the government's commitment to boosting tourism. Thailand prides itself among the top tourist destinations in the world, while tourism serves as one of the country's prime foreign exchange earners. If the proposed measure gets enough support, local officials plan to implement the proposed visa waiver for Chinese travelers on October 1, coinciding with a week-long celebration of China's National Day. Thailand's newly appointed Prime Minister, Sethar Thavisin, has promised to prioritize tourism as an economic growth driver. One of his first tasks as premier was to tour Phuket to get first-hand insights into the tourism situation. Chinese tourists comprise Phuket's largest group of foreign visitors, with 60,000 recorded traveling to the popular holiday destination last month. Thailand increased its target for international arrivals in 2023 to 30 million and aims to boost its tourism industry to nearly 100 billion US dollar in 2024. Besides China, Thailand also plans to ease its visa rules for travelers from India. The government also announced plans to allow international travelers to stay longer in the country to hit its tourism target next year. รายงานจากราชบุรี นายชันมงคลพิสมัยโกศล SMN News ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ